Hey guys, glad you all decided to hang out with me today. It's kind of a rainy Tennessee afternoon, to be honest, but it's still a good day. Today I want to talk to you guys about cinematic footage, specifically tricks to make your B-roll feel more cinematic. Before we jump into that, I think it's important to define what cinematic is. So, cinematic is defined as having the qualities and characteristics of motion pictures. Cool, so let's analyze cinema screens and see what we can learn from making our own videos more cinematic. First, let's discuss the obvious black bars on the top and bottom of the screen, or letterboxes as they're also known. Why are they there? Basically, these black bars are just the parts of the screen that the film is not being projected on. The letterboxes are not actually edited into the film. Rather, films are just shot in a wider aspect ratio than the size of the screen the movie is displayed on. This has been the case more or less since 1952 with the invention of Cinerama, the first widescreen capable movie, and it stuck. Well, not Cinerama. Actually, Cinerama was really expensive. It required 3 cameras and 3 projectors to shoot, but the idea of widescreen stuck. People really preferred the widescreen look over the Academy ratio, which looked more like a square. However, we perceive them as cinematic because they've been in basically every movie for the past 70 years. So my first tip to you guys would be to kind of cheat and add these black bars into your B-roll. To do this, open up your editing software. In Final Cut, open the effects, search letterbox, and select the ratio you prefer. I personally prefer 1.85. However, it's kind of up to you as to what looks best for your footage. If you have Premiere, add an adjustment layer over your footage, find the crop effect, drag it onto the adjustment layer, and crop the top and bottom of the footage about 12% to achieve a similar effect. You can kind of toy around with the percentage to get the look that you prefer for yours. I personally like 12%. Next, let's talk frame rates. To save you kind of a long story, let's just say that way back in cinema history, some guy discovered that 24 frames per second with a shutter of 1/50th of a second was the cheapest and most efficient way to display the persistence of vision illusion, or in layman's term, basically motion, hence motion picture. So just make sure that anything that you're recording that you want to be played in real time is shot in 24 frames per second to give you that cinematic feel and also to give you natural motion blur. On kind of that same topic, have you ever been watching a movie and all of a sudden there's this really epic looking slow motion scene and your mind's like, wow, that's so cinematic. On the other hand, sometimes slow motion is way overused and your mind is more like, is everything in this movie slow motion? Either way, if used correctly, slow motion can be a great addition for your videos. So to do this, set your camera to at least 60 frames per second. If your camera can do 120 frames per second, that's great. Make sure to bump up your shutter speed as close to twice your FPS as possible. So if I'm shooting in 60 frames per second, I'll set my shutter speed to 125. That's the closest to double my camera can do. Record all your slow motion scenes, then dump them into your editor. In Final Cut, select your footage, go up to that little speedometer looking icon and select automatic speed. This will convert it from 60 frames per second to 24 frames per second, making it slow motion. If you're dabbling in Premiere, select your clip, right click, select speed/duration, and set the necessary speed. I shot in 60 frames per second, so to convert it to roughly 24 frames per second, I'll set it to 40% speed. If you want to convert 120 frames per second to 24 frames per second, set it to about 20% speed. Lastly, I'm going to quickly tell you about a color grading trend that's kind of been popping up everywhere recently. Love it or hate it, it's the teal orange look. Lately, a ton of films are delving into this whole orange teal style. Movies like Jurassic World, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Into the Abyss, Iron Man 2, Into the Woods, and most notably Mad Max Fury Road are all using this color grade style. What these films are doing to pull off this look is that they're pulling the highlights and midtones into the oranges, and then they're pulling the shadows into the teals. This is kind of delving into a bit of color theory, but basically these are complementary colors, meaning that they're on opposite sides of the spectrum, and they work well with skin tones. For instance, almost all skin tones kind of are in that orange area, and then the complementary color to that would be the teal, so it's a really appealing look. So to utilize this in your videos, take your clip in Final Cut, open the color grading options, and pull the highlight and midtone wheels into the oranges and the shadow wheel into the teals. Final Cut also has a built-in orange teal effect, which is nifty. In Premiere Pro, it's more or less the same. Select your clip and move move the shadows into the teals and your highlights and midtones into the oranges, and voila, simple. Alright guys, those were just a few tips to help create a more cinematic look for your B-roll. There's a lot more that filmmakers and directors use to make their footage look cinematic, but these were just a few tips that I hope you found useful. If you did, be sure to click that like button and subscribe for more content. Also comment down below, do you guys like these shorter tip style videos, or do you want to see me do longer tutorial videos in the future? Anyways guys, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and as always, thanks for hanging.